Well, welcome everyone. I'm happy to be here with you today, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you about the topic of accessibility. And so one of the things in my office is that we have a lot of students that come in who request either accommodations based on a disability, strategies for learning. There's a lot of students who have disabilities that don't necessarily access accommodations, but want strategies. So I am thrilled to be here with you and learning about the accessibility on mobile devices, because Jennifer actually walked me through some of the accessibility features that I didn't even know about. And as we know, in education, knowledge is power. So I'm excited to share with you about just an overarching idea of accessibility for students with disabilities. And so one of the things is that assistive devices can help students to access their education and their learning similar to their peers. Because a student with a disability, whether it be hearing or whether it be in their speaking or maybe in their mobility, their use of their arms or what have you, assistive technology can really help a student to access their education. So there's so many great things out there that will help students to learn. There's some observable examples of students with disabilities. How many of you have had a student in your classroom with a sign language interpreter or with a captionist? Okay. What about a student who is blind? Okay. Now, those are apparent disabilities, and those, we can all see. A lot of what I see in my office are students with disabilities that are non-apparent: dyslexia, learning disabilities, psychological, maybe ADD, ADHD. And so even with those disabilities, assistive technology can help students to compensate in a way for their learning. Definition of a disability is someone that has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits a major life function. One of those in higher education would be their academics. And so that's what we look at when we're looking at whether a student qualifies for accommodations, is how is their disability impacting them? And so we look to see how that impacts them. We talk with the student. We look at documentation from their physician or psychologist or psychiatrist, and we work with the student to determine what are the best accommodations. Now with that, we also talk about resources, and that's what we're going to learn about later on in the presentation. APU falls under 504 more than they do ADA. So 504 is the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. This is what we look at in terms of students who come into our university with disabilities. We do all that we can to make sure that they are not discriminated against, so that they have access to their education, that we don't create any barriers to access. So that's why we provide sign language interpreters, captionists. We provide other resources for students so that they're able to have a learning environment that's similar to their peers. Now I want you to think about, before I get into this slide, if you were a student with a significant visual, hearing, or mobility impairment of some sort, what would you need to access this workshop? What kind of maybe assistive technology or accommodations would you need if you were in that situation? What would I need to do as a presenter to make sure that you have access? If there were a picture on the slide, wouldn't I need to describe it so that you have an understanding of what picture is there? Because if you're a person who has a visual limitation that you can't see a picture, and I'm talking about, and I'm assuming that you know that it's there, you might be a little lost in my lecture, right? Okay, so APU, right now we have about 148 students who are registered for accommodations. 41 of those students are graduate students. 4 of those students are deaf. 1 student is blind. We have other students with hearing limitations and other visual limitations. This number does not represent the total number of students with disabilities at APU. These are the students who have accessed services, okay? Nationally, there's about 10.9% of college students who claim that they have a disability or are registered with disability services. That does not represent the overall number of students or individuals in the United States who have disabilities. That's just college students, okay? From a biblical perspective, you know the story of the man at the pool of Bethesda who couldn't get into the pool. He was waiting there. He was paralyzed. He could not get into the pool. Everybody was going before him. He had no means to get in. And Jesus, said, do you want to get well? Of course, the man is like, of course I want to get well. And we all know that Jesus saw this man's inability, to get into the pool. Obviously, Jesus is the great healer and the great understander of our needs. He's very understanding of our needs. But in terms of Jesus understanding access, in terms of our responsibility as people of faith, we need to look at how people are able to access or not access their education. Okay? So the LAC and accessibility. Do you all know where the LAC is? Some of you do, some of you don't. Learning Enrichment Center, it's on East Campus. We actually have 4 programs. We have tutoring and SI. We have freshman readiness, which is your Compass placement testing. We also have testing, not psychological testing, but CLEP testing, DSST, that sort of thing. And we also have disability services. So there's 4 programs. And one of the things that we've done, if you can see this, is that we've kind of repurposed our mission. Our mission and vision is that we would support all students academically in whatever way we can. And so what we have is a word cloud here that really describes what we want students to think and feel when they come into the LAC and when they leave the LAC. And this is for all students, not just students with disabilities. But students with disabilities in particular, we want them to feel welcome. We want them to have access. This word says access here. We want them to feel supported. We want to focus on their strengths, not their weaknesses. And we want to provide them with all the resources that we can when they come into us and ask us, I need help with something. What kind of resources are available for me? And that's why I'm so excited about what Jennifer is going to share with us in a few minutes, because again, these are resources we can all offer to students. So we provide, in terms of disability services, accommodations to students. And a lot of you, have you received those memos from us? For students, maybe some of you have, some of you haven't. When a student actually qualifies for accommodations, you will receive something called an accommodation memo. So that comes from our office, and it describes certain types of accommodations that a student might receive. If a student actually is using assistive technology, we will put that on the memo so that you know that a student is receiving assistive technology. Now, I work with some graduate students who actually have assistive technology. That has been I have some veterans who, through the Veterans Administration, they've actually provided them with some assistive technology. And so that student is actually teaching their faculty how they use that assistive technology. That way, if you see something that looks amiss, that you understand, oh, the student is using, this assistive technology to help them, to process their information, sometimes it's to get their information down on paper. So we also provide academic support. We try to be comprehensive so that students with disabilities, it's not just that accommodation memo. We will offer to students to, again, provide them support, provide them information and resources beyond just the accommodation so that they can access their education. And that's for any student, not just students with disabilities. Right now, we have a video that's going to show you a powerful, really powerful example of a young man who uses assistive technology in an amazing way.
So that's a really powerful video. It's a little shocking and hard to watch, right? A little bit. It was hard for me to watch when I found it last week. But what I want to tell you about that video is that student or that gentleman 10 years ago would have been trapped in his own body and would not have had the life that he has today. And what I also want to tell you is that 5 years ago, it would have cost him a whole lot of money to run a business because those devices, those accessibility features were very, very pricey, $8,000, $10,000, $12,000. And now they're free. A lot of them are free in iOS 8 or iOS 7, actually. So if you have an iPhone or if you have an iPad or any kind of tablet, you're going to have these accessibility features. That blows me away. It humbles me. It makes me happy that I have hands and feet every single day. It makes me grateful. And it makes me feel like we really need to champion this and put awareness out there for our students. Because although this is really known, you can tell that he has a disability, we have hundreds of students at APU that you can't tell. And they're dying inside. And we have things that they already have in their phones and in their iPads that can help them access content more simply. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. It's something that's very important to me and personal for me. But the goal of accessibility is to provide access to content. It's to provide access in ways that increase, maintain, or improve student accessibility to content. Now, we talk a lot about assistive technology, but it's just technology. We put that label on it, but it's really nothing special. It's just what we are using in an effort to increase, maintain, or improve student access to content. So don't get afraid when you hear the word accessibility, because it's not some fancy new thing. It's just how we're using the technology to help students access the content, okay? I love to be interrupted, so feel free if you have questions. I'm more conversational than lecture-y. It's not my style, so if you have a question or a comment during the presentation, feel free, okay? So one of the bodies of research that's out there on accessibility is Joy Zabala's work on the SET framework. SET stands for Student, Environment, Task, and Tool. The student is at the front. It's always the student's learning needs that we consider first. It's really easy to think, I'll just take this iPad and throw it at the kid and then it's going to be healed. That's not the way it works. The way it works is that you look at the student, you look at them, where they're learning, their learning environment. If it's a classroom setting, is it lecture? Is it one of our online students? Where are they learning? What is the learning task? What are they trying to do? Are they reading? Are they watching a video? Are they watching a lecture? Are they writing a report? Are they doing an iMovie? What do they need to access? And then we match the technology with the student, the environment, the task, and then we pick the technology tool that aligns. I have this presentation online for you and also a sheet that has the web links for everything we're showing you today. So if you want to go back and look more deeply at this, it's there for you. She's got a wealth of documents that support identification in the assistive technology process free on her website. She's the most generous soul in the world. I've met her. Everything she develops is out there, and it's research-based. So I strongly encourage you to look at the work of Joy Zabala. She's cutting edge for assistive tech. All right, so I did some research just to make sure that I wasn't leaving out our Android-loving friends, because some people like Androids. That's okay. God loves you too. Yeah, we celebrate differentness here at APU. No. And when I was asked by the International Society of Technology and Education first to do this webinar with them, and that was 2 years ago. And when I looked at accessibility in Android devices 2 years ago, it was really underwhelming. It was like, not so much. They have VoiceOver, which allows everything on the screen to be read. They have some limited text-to-speech, which allows the text to be talked to you. And they've got another feature that changes the lighting in the screen. There are also thousands of different platforms in Android devices, thousands of them. So the features vary from resource to resource. However, in the past 2 years, I've been pretty impressed with how they've come up. Every time Apple takes a step forward, Android takes like 10 steps forward. So, and I bought a Chromebook 2 weeks ago, so that pulls me over to the Google side. So I'm not all Apple anymore. And there are some seriously valuable accessibility features now in those devices as well. So there's a link to a YouTube video on accessibility features for Android devices if you want to access that later. Okay, and so quickly I'm going to go through all of the new things on the iOS 8, and then we're going to pick up our devices and look at them. Most of the features in the iOS 8 device, your iPhone or your iPad, you'll have something compatible in an Android device. So you can look the same place if you've got an Android phone today that you want to look at. Okay, so new features are, this is so cool, you can hook up a Braille keyboard to the iPad, and the Braille keyboard will pick up the words in the Notes feature. So you have to, for the cost of the Braille keyboard, of course, but the Braille keyboard via Bluetooth will connect to the iPad. Amazing. Hearing. Now there are subtitles and closed captioning for any resource that has embedded closed captioning. They will pick up on your device. Okay? That has to be enabled, and we'll show you that in a minute. Switch control. We're going to try to wrap our brains around this because this is very deep. But it's taking the iPad and turning it into a switch. What's a switch? A switch is what is used by a person with a severe physical disability to be able to speak or to be able to create. Chris, in the YouTube video, was using switches to be able to do that final video editing. I'll show you a couple of examples of that. I myself, I'm wrapping my brain around it, so we'll look at it together. You can pair your Bluetooth to other devices. Assistive touch now has, assistive touch is a means to access anything in your device with a stylus or with one finger, and we'll do that together. But what's neat now is that it also, Notification Center and Control Center are able to work in assistive touch. Speak selection is where you can select the text on your device and it will speak it out loud to you. Now you can speak the screen. So with 2 fingers, you can scroll, you just swipe your screen and it reads the whole screen to you. I know, Christmas Day in my world. Christmas Day, because now, you know, if you have got one of those really long emails, so you enable speak screen before you start your car, and then you can listen to the email all the way home. It works for me. The voice that used to be in iOS 7 is a female voice that was pretty good, but Alex now is a male voice and it's more natural sounding. It uses more intonation and inflection. It blows me away, these things. You can do gray screen and there's a more robust zoom. Guided access is where you can lock someone in, like a child, into one app. So they're in that app and they can't get out of that app to go playing a game or surfing on YouTube or anywhere else that they might want to go. These are great for toddlers. We like them into guided access so they stay in one place. Also great for elementary school kids. A lot of teachers love this one. But now you can get out of guided access using digital or your thumbprint, or you can set a timer. We'll show you that too. Then, did you know that there's family sharing? So you can, when you buy an app and download it, you can share it on up to 6 users, 6 devices. That's not illegal. It doesn't violate any copyright. 6 users on one device. Or, I'm sorry, on 6 devices, sharing one app. And there's a health kit. So if you need to get fit, it's in there for you. It'll monitor your blood rate. So if you wouldn't mind, if you have a device with you today, if you could get it out and go into Settings, then click on General, then click on Accessibility. All your options are there. They didn't just put them there last night. They put them there a couple years ago. However, they do change features often, and last night there was an update, and so I got a little paranoid because I did the update on all my devices, and I'm like, we'll see how that works. Okay, so for vision, you have voiceover, zoom, invert colors, grayscale, and speech. We're going to go through those. Larger text, bold text, button shapes, increase contrast, reduce motion, and on-off labels. Let's start with that. Voiceover. Click on voiceover, but don't enable it, or you'll be sad. I promise. So you click on voiceover. Please don't enable it. What VoiceOver does is everything you touch on your iPad, it speaks it out loud to you. So if you have very low vision, you can't see the device, you want VoiceOver enabled so it will speak it out loud to you. The problem is, when you enable VoiceOver, it changes some of the buttons on the outside of your tablet, so it's really hard to disable it. So I'm teaching master students one night, right? And I say, okay, touch VoiceOver, but don't enable it. And 3 of them said, too late. And then we spent the next 20 minutes listening to them, listen to their iPads talk to them and not be able to get back. Yeah, it was fun. It was funny. If you enable triple-click home with VoiceOver, you're pretty safe to enable it and disable it, because if you triple-click the home button, you can get out of it. Okay? We're not going to go there today. There's speech, so you can change the dialect. The Braille is where you would set up your Braille keyboard. The rotor is, I don't know why it's called a rotor, because it's just all of these options that you can have enabled within VoiceOver. Okay? Now, before we go any further, I want to show you how a teacher is using.
This is Andrea, and today I'm going to be demonstrating to you how, as a teacher or as a parent, you can create Braille for your student without actually having to write it. How we're going to do that is I've connected the iPad 2 here to this Refreshable Braille 18, which is from APH, and it is a refreshable Braille display connected via Bluetooth. What I'm able to do here is, as a teacher, I might be doing reading, and say we're only going to be working on 5 words today. So I'm going to open up Notepad, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to type in my 5 words, one of them being can. I'm going to work on the word the, read, run, and let's pick one more, set. Now that I'm finished, I'm going to move my cursor back up here to the beginning over here and turn off my keyboard. And because I've set the triple click home as a toggle feature to turn VoiceOver on and off, I can simply turn on the VoiceOver feature by hitting my home button 3 times. 1, 2, 3.
VoiceOver on. Landscape. Home button to the right. Notes. Accounts.
You'll notice that VoiceOver turns on, and in addition to VoiceOver turning on, my Braille display also starts displaying Braille, or whatever the VoiceOver cursor is reading. Now, because we're over here, and as a teacher, I don't know all of the commands to make the VoiceOver cursor go over, I'm simply going to go over here and tap where I want it to start reading, and it will say the word can. You also know that on my Braille display, it will also read the word can and or display it in Braille. Since I'm going to be instructing this student on how to read Braille or read the word can, I don't want it to talk to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disable the speech on VoiceOver. It doesn't turn VoiceOver off, it simply makes it stop talking. So in order to do that, I'm going to take 3 fingers and I'm going to tap twice.
Speech off.
And it merely says speech off. Now I'm over here at the word can, and can will be displayed over here on my Braille display, and you'll notice that it says capital C-A-N for can. Now the student would simply go ahead and read that word to me, and when I would like the student to read the next word, being a regular classroom teacher, I'm just going to simply go over here and I'm going to press the word the. And the word the now shows up on my Braille display, in which I will have the student read the word the. I think this is a pretty good usable tool for both parents and teachers, being that you're now able to create Braille and have your student read Braille simply by typing yourself. You could have the student by turning on and off. So let's see here. I'm going to go to turn VoiceOver off, and you'll notice that VoiceOver is now off. So if I want to come back and put in more words or add more features, I can do S-A and then T, and then I just turn it off. Triple click home
VoiceOver
to turn
on.
VoiceOver back on,
Landscape.
and I can simply
Empty
tap and
messaging.
hold the word that I want. You'll notice that once I turn VoiceOver off, it will turn that speech back on. So I'm going to tap it again.
Speech off.
with 3-finger double tap just to turn it off. And I'm going to move the cursor over here, and it'll say can. And then I can have it go S-A-T. Gives us a little more space for those beginning readers so that they're able to go ahead and actually sound out the word and not be confused by too many contractions being together. Therefore, that's pretty much my demonstration for how you can go ahead and create a document in print and have your student be able to read it in Braille using both the iPad 2 and the refreshable Braille 18.
So while we're switching back from that video on how a teacher used Braille, think about the cost of the iPad or an iPad mini and the cost of a Braille keyboard instead of the cost of a whole system. It's pretty huge. One of the things that maybe you noticed as we were watching it, I had enabled the closed captioning, and if you were paying attention, there were a ton of errors. There's a reason, and I think, oh, yeah, that's cute. What happens in YouTube now is if you upload a video, like say you have a video that you're using for instruction for your students, you upload it, and then within a couple of days, YouTube closed captioning it transcribes it, and it uploads it with your video. What happened? Oh, okay. Freaked me out. Okay. So what you would have to do then is go back into YouTube and edit for those errors, because it transcribes as best as it's going to transcribe. It's a free service. But you can go back in and edit. Another way you can do it is you can literally upload a script, and it will align with your video presentation. So that's one way that's easy for you to make your presentations more accessible to your students. Okay? Pretty cool. And that's free from YouTube. Thank you, YouTube. You're very generous. I feel very grateful. All right, so voiceover. Then the next one we're going to look at quickly is Zoom. So you're back in settings and general and accessibility. And if you click Zoom. Now, in iOS 7, Zoom was just zooming the screen and moving around on it. iOS 8 has the capability to zoom a selection of the screen, just a window. So first of all, go ahead and turn on your Zoom. Hold up 3 fingers, or click the home button so you're out of it. Hold up 3 fingers, double tap. 3-finger double tap. Now you can move the screen around so that it's bigger. Then your question is, well, Jennifer, I can do that if I pinch a page. Some pages are not pinchable. So you can zoom the pages that are not pinchable. So think about your students, and they're looking at their iPad, and maybe they have low vision. You say, you can enable zoom, and you can see it better that way. Double-click 3 fingers, and it puts it back. All right, so there are more options in there. Go into settings. So you can show a controller. Go ahead and set that up, and then a little gray circle will appear. Do you see the little gray circle? You always want to be super ADHD when you see things on your iPad. Go, what's that? Click it. All kinds of great stuff is down underneath little gray circles. So if we click that, then it gives me the options to zoom in, to zoom on a window, to filter, or to hide this controller. So if I window zoom, now you notice I have this little window. Now I can drag around the little window, and whatever is on my screen shows up in that tiny little window. I can drag the window around, so I don't have to zoom the whole page. I can just drag that selection. You see how that works? If I want to get out of it, I go back to full screen zoom. In the controller, I can zoom using the scroll bar at the bottom as well. I don't know why I'm holding it this way, because you can see it on the big screen. I'm like, get out of the way. All right, so you can zoom it bigger, or you can zoom less. Okay, again, this is really useful for pages that you can't pinch. My husband found this pretty useful when he had cornea replacement surgery, and his eyes were healing. And he was able to still access his iPad, even though his vision was pretty bad for a few weeks. So it's useful. And again, or first time, some of these features you might never use. That's the truth. But God has a way of using what you know. So maybe you'll never use it, but maybe someone will come into your life and you'll say that they can't access the iPad for some reason. You say, you know what, it's an accessibility feature, let me show you. And then all of a sudden you've changed their life. God can use your knowledge without it ever being applied maybe to your students, but maybe to a family member. Okay? That's what I love about this. And consider this as well, as we're going through this stuff. There are some kind developers in the world. These just kind. This is kind, free access to people with disabilities. It's like they sit around a table and say, how can we be kind today? All right, so we're going to disable Zoom and go back. Now the next one is invert colors, and I'm going to show it to you on my device because it won't show on the big screen. So see how I have a white with black text? If I click, and you can do that on yours as well, if you click invert colors, creepy cool. Now it's black with white writing. Go into your photos. I love that laugh. It's really, it changes it inverts all the colors. Why is that useful in the wide world? Well, if I'm a student that can't read black text on white background, if I have an infirmity that doesn't allow me to do this, this is another way in. Also great for reading at night with the lights out. Somebody doesn't want you reading and you can read because it works in your iBooks.
That's the one right there.
I know. Save a marriage. Because it inverts everything in your device. Also, there are certain students, ADHD and students with autism, who are very agitated with the white background and they need something calmer. So invert colors works well for them when they're trying to learn from a tablet because that white background is really, it escalates behavior for them. Okay? So if we turn off invert colors, then this is new to iOS 8, grayscale. So invert colors is black with popping color because everything is inverted. Grayscale, go ahead and click it on. That just makes, and I'll have to show it to you from here because it doesn't show up on the big screen, but that just makes everything on your tablet gray. So if your eyes can't process color or black and they need a softer look, you can enable grayscale. Makes me happy. Then I go back to settings, general, accessibility. I turn off grayscale. I'm going to turn off Zoom too so I don't end up with too many things open at once. And then I'm going to go hide controller. Okay. To speech. Speech is probably the one I use the most. It's probably my favorite. So if you go into speech, turn on speak selection. You can choose a voice. It does not translate. But it will read, if there's text in Spanish, it will read in Spanish. If there's text in Danish, it will read in Danish, but it does not translate. Okay? So, hey, translator, nope. You can control the speaking rate, so it can read really fast, or you can read really slow, depending on how fast you process auditorily. And it can highlight the words. And I always, for my teachers that are going into the profession, I always tell them, make sure you enable highlight content, because their students who are learning to read need to track words. Speak auto text just speaks out any mistakes that you make. It's kind of irritating. So I never enable that because I don't want to know. I have family for that. So now I'm, not really. So now I'm in speak selection. So if I go into like my notes, for example, and I can click on a note. So you see it comes up, copy, select all, define, or speak. You have a dictionary in your notes, by the way. It'll define words for you. These two little blue handles, I could have it select all and speak the whole thing, but I'm not going to go there today. I just drag the two little handles to as much as I want it to speak, and I go speak.
You're going on a field trip at a daycare. You better be prepared. I had somewhat of an adventure at my daughter's daycare, which I got permission to visit in order to fulfill the Toy Store requirement. In order to focus on my observations, I did not visit the room that she was in.
It tracks it across. It's too fast. I need to slow it down. I need to make sure that a different voice is a little irritating. Yes?
You said, but it doesn't translate?
Right, it doesn't translate. There is Google Translate, and it's pretty good. Although my sister is a translator, and she says never trust an automatic translator. Always have a person. She never translates into another language. She always translates into English because she doesn't trust it. So this is a forum discussion from a student from an assignment. Actually, the observation is pretty hysterical, but don't have time for that today. So if I want to have it read everything to me, let's go into something that's not so robust. I can swipe down with 2 fingers. No, because I didn't enable it. So I'm going to go back. In speech, then I need to enable speak screen. So enable speak screen, and you can have both enabled at once. Okay? So when you do that, now open up your notes or open up your email or open up somewhere on your device, and with 2 fingers, swipe down, and it will speak the screen to you. So if I go into my notes, and I 2 fingers down.
Music and art night field trip recap. Connect at https://
Okay.
www.
I can pause it. The little rabbit will make it talk faster. The little turtle will make it talk slower. You can fast forward or rewind. Pretty cool. So I'm going to cut the little turtle.
Music and art night field
Slow
trip
down.
recap. Connect at
Okay.
https.
Make sense? So now everything in your device, or your notes, your email, all the things that are in your device will speak to you. It works on some websites, but not all websites. If you're in the reader view on a website, it'll work on that website. But if you're on a web page, sometimes it won't read those. Okay? There are other add-ons that will read full pages of websites that I can share with you when we're done. All right, so let's go into the next one. Larger text just makes the text larger. There's a little scroll bar. You just scroll to make it larger. Or scroll. Can you think of someone in your life that could use that? That's doing this right now? You don't need to do this. And it's free. Next time somebody says, I need something so I can read the screen, it's going to cost me $50, then you say, no, no, no. No. Look at what you already have. Because by law, accessibility features have to be in all mobile devices and all computers. It's the law. So you have it. It's in there. You just have to find it. Okay? Bold text makes the text on your device bold. I don't enable this one because there's always a warning message that you need to restart your device to enable it, and I am a little leery about doing that because I've been locked out of my device before by enabling. 10 minutes before a presentation, I enabled switch control, and I was locked out of my device, and we got it working 30 seconds before start. It was a little frustrating. Yeah, just a little bit. It worked out, though. All right, so button shapes. Look up here where it says general. Do you see the word general? Just keep your eyes on that. I'm going to enable button shapes. What happened to general? I'll disable it. It's grayed in. So if you have a student that doesn't understand that, some people don't understand that everything's a hyperlink, they don't naturally poke around at things, you enable button shapes and it puts a button around anything that's a hyperlink in your device. I know, Christmas Day, right? The one that makes me the happiest, though, look at button, no, we're going to skip. Look at on-off labels. Watch that. Okay, look up here. Right now it's green, right? Turn it off. Look at the other buttons. I'm going to turn it back on, and I'm going to turn it off. What happened? Okay, so look at bold text. It's white, right? There's nothing there. When I enable on-off labels, now you see the little circle around it? When I turn it off, there's no little circle. So if I can't see green, how do I know that that's on? I think this is the kindest button of all, because if I can't see color, I would have to remember which side is off and which side is on. So if I enable button shapes, the zeros mean it's off, the lines mean it's on. Who would have thought to do that? Somebody who can't see color. But Apple supports this kind of growth in their products and just says, hey, we need to make this accessible for people who can't see color. It just makes my heart warm. Okay, so I love that one. Now, increased contrast and reduced motion are, it's actually a pretty funny story. When they went from iOS 5 to iOS 6, if you remember that, in 5, everything had very hard lines. And in 6, everything is a little bit more swooshy and movement-oriented and soft, and we kind of like that because it feels just so soft and cozy. The vision community had a fit because we took away their hard lines and we put motion underneath things. And that makes it really hard for a person with low vision to see. So within a couple of months of iOS 6 coming out, because I like to track these things, increased contrast and reduced motion showed up. Because for people with low vision, it was like them saying, put it back. We need it back to the way it was. So they can put it back. Yes?
Yeah, the reduced motion feature turns off the parallax effect. So on your background, when you rotate it, you can see your background moving, and that reduced motion turns that feature off.
Right. Thank you. That's really important if that bothers you. Okay? Now, let's go down to hearing. Hearing aids. Do you now it's searching for my Bluetooth-enabled hearing aids. That's what it's doing. If you have hearing aids that are Bluetooth-enabled, you can set up your hearing aids to access your iPad or your phone. So I was thinking about this and thinking, that doesn't really have much to do with anything. And then I was talking to my mom on the phone. And she said, what? And I repeat. And she said, what? And I repeat. And she says, what? And I repeat. And I'm usually pretty irritated with that. And I turned that around in my brain and said, what if I was the one saying what 10 times in a phone conversation? How horrible that is. How bad you must feel to have to ask. I'm making her get Bluetooth-enabled hearing aids when she needs them the next time because it's much kinder. Now, she can pair her Bluetooth hearing aids to her iPhone and hear me very clearly. When she gets those, she will be able to. Her current ones are working, so we're not there yet, and Dad's doesn't like to spend money. But when she finally gets them, that will help. So if you have a student with hearing challenges, they can enable the Bluetooth and connect right to their device, and they can hear with direct access. Make sense? Mono audio is some people, you know how if you put on your earbuds, you have a right and a left earbud. You hear certain sounds out of one and certain sounds out of the other, just like you do in the movies. If that bothers your brain, you can turn on mono audio, so you hear the same information in both ears, okay, rather than some in one ear and some in the other ear. Right and left, come back. I'm not worried, I have tech support. Right and left, say I have better hearing in my left ear than in my right ear. So I can put more sound into the ear with less hearing ability. If you look at your earbuds, one says R, one says L. Okay? Bet you didn't know that. I didn't. I went, hey, look at that. It does say R. I better put it in the right ear. Yeah. Yeah. Now, in media, subtitles and captioning, you can enable closed captioning and subtitles for any media that already has the closed captioning there. It won't do the closed captioning for you. But if you have a YouTube video that does have the closed captioning enabled, it will show up. Or if you have another video, any kind of media that already has those closed captioning put in, it'll show up. Make sense? All right, so it'll also give you descriptions of what the videos are for a person with hearing impairment. Guided access is the favorite of teachers. So let me show you that one. Because what guided access does is it locks a student or a child or a person with ADHD into one app. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. If I click guided access, and go ahead and turn that on. All right? In passcode, you need to set a passcode. here's the deal. I always ask people to set it at 5150 because then if it's the police code for crazy. Because then if you forget it, you can email me and I'll tell you it's 5150. Okay, so if you're not going to remember it, just do 5150 and then I'll let you know that's what it is. So then I set it, put it in there twice. Now I'm going back out and let's see, I want my student to work in Evernote. So I'm opening up Evernote, which I love, by the way. It's great. I take my notes in church in Evernote now. So now I have notes for a year in Evernote. They just keep it going and going and going. It's awesome. Okay, so I have Evernote. I'm going to go into a note that I have, and then I'm going to triple click, and that didn't work. We'll do it again. Triple click. So I have enabled my triple click home to enable guided access and switch. So I'm going to click guided access because that's what I want to do. Now guided access is started. Why didn't it give me options? It didn't. So I can work on my device, and then if I want out of there, I triple click again. And now I have to put the passcode in to get out. Okay? If I put the passcode in wrong, it makes me wait 10 seconds. If I put it in wrong twice, it makes me wait 20 seconds. The more times I put in the passcode wrong, the longer the wait time. So if you have a student that's just trying whatever passcode, it's just going to lock them out for a really long time. What's nice about guided access is that, again, it locks you in, but you can also enable guided, here we go, that's the screen I wanted. So this is what guided access looks like. You can enable the user to touch the screen or not. You can enable the user to get out in a certain time limit, which is kind of neat. So you set it for 10 minutes. So you have to be in that app for 10 minutes, and then it will automatically unlock them in 10 minutes. And that's what's new to iOS 8, okay? Or they can get out with your fingerprint. You know how you can get in your phone with, they can do that. All right, so it also, in hardware options, it also gives you option to turn off or wake up the sleep or wake button, volume buttons, motion, and keyboards. So if you don't want them shaking the thing, if it's not a game, you can disable motion. If you don't want them typing, you can disable keyboards. So you can disable or enable different features within the app, and then set a time limit on how long they need to be in the app, or just set a passcode, and you control when they're out of the app. Does that make sense? Okay, so I can either resume or exit. I'm going to end. Also very beneficial for young moms. They love this one because the child steals the phone. And a big trend among the 4-year-old set is to purchase apps on mom's phone. True, it's true. Apps, yep. They just get into the apps. I didn't know I downloaded $125 worth of apps in the App Store. Guided access keeps them out. And if you have that information that you can pay forward, it's really great. So switch control. Switch control is for people with severe physical disabilities. In the past, before switch control became available in iOS 6 a couple of years ago. Prior to that, if you needed to access technology, you had to buy a switch, usually a Dynavox. And those cost, correct me if I'm wrong, around $8,000? Okay, big, bulky, or little. You can also get a switch on a Nintendo DX. They're smaller and cooler, but they're still expensive. There's a couple other videos that are included in the handout that you can watch so you can see more about switch control. This is the best one as an example to show how he's getting into his iPad using head movements only. So if you have cerebral palsy, this broke down the last barrier for you. And getting back to that video of Chris at the beginning, this breaks down barriers for people who were trapped in their bodies before this or had to use very expensive equipment to make this happen. So how can we use this with students? If we don't have someone in our classroom that's that severely disabled, we have the knowledge, and we can pay that forward to other people. Maybe they have a relative or a friend. And just knowing it, you say, you know, I had that accessibility. Let's look there. We can find something. And you can always email us and we will help you with that, okay? We love assistive technology. I'm going to show you next one of my other favorites. It's assistive touch. So hold up your finger. Let's pretend that the only way you could access your device was through one finger, or a stylus that's strapped to your forehead, or a stylus that's strapped to your arm. Okay? Assistive touch allows you to navigate through your entire device with one finger. So go ahead and turn on assistive touch. And when you turn on assistive touch, the little gray square of joy appears. Do you see the little gray square of joy? It'll be somewhere on your screen. Might not be the same place as my screen. One finger only. If you touch that, now touch device. I can lock my screen. I can rotate my screen. I can lock the rotation of my screen. I can turn my volume up or down. And you see that word more? We always want to click when it says more. That's where all the good stuff is. All the good stuff is buried. So if I go into more, I can take a screenshot. I can bring up my multitasking bar. I can shake it. So let's say I'm playing a game and I need to shake my device. I click shake and it shakes it. If I go into gestures, I can make this one finger into 2 fingers or 3 fingers or 4 fingers or a hand. I know, but there's more, because this is even, now, there's so much fun. So when you go here, you can enable Siri if you're hooked up to Wi-Fi. So you just click that and Siri comes up. And Siri's not available right now, so we'll turn her off. Sorry, Siri. I love you very much. Bye. Okay, we'll go back to assistive touch. You can bring up your notification center, your device, your control center. You can go home, which is just going home. Or, let's go home. Let's go back. Now we're home. Now go into assistive touch again. I'm going into favorites. The only favorite listed in there right now is the ability to pinch out. Okay? But watch this. We're going to go back here to assistive touch, and it says create new gesture. Now, if I'm the one with the disability, I wouldn't be able to create the gesture. I would need to have a instructional aid or a family member or a therapist put in the bank of gestures. So think about what kinds of things you normally do with your hand on your iPad. You swipe from right to left a lot. You swipe up to close an app. Okay? So I'm going to hit create a new gesture, and then I'm going to record what I want to do. So I'm going to swipe from right to left. So I swipe. Whoop. Go ahead and do that. And then click save. And you're going to name it. I'm going to name it swipe to left. And then I'm going to click save. Now I'm going to click home so we can practice. My assistive touch is still enabled. It's up there in the top left corner. I'm going to enable that. Open it up. Come on, guy. Open. There we go. Now I'm going to go into favorites again. Now my swipe right to left is there. Do you see that? I'm going to choose that. Now a little black dot appears where I started my swipe. And I touch that, and it swipes my device. Christmas Day. Right? So you can enable this to swipe different directions, or you can enable it to swipe up to close apps. You can put in all these custom gestures that you would normally do with your hands, and then the person that just has the stylus to access this is in. It also works if you break your home button on your device. You break your home button on your device, you just enable assistive touch, and you get another couple months out of that device before you have to go get a new one. And the home button is the thing that breaks the first. So, okay? Assistive touch. I'm going to go back here now, and let's go home. And to turn it off, you just go back into assistive touch, and you turn it off. If you created a gesture that didn't really work the way you wanted it to work, all you do is swipe right to left, and you can delete it. then you can delete it, okay? So then it's gone. It doesn't save gestures on different devices automatically. You have to put them in on each device. Just like with guided access, it doesn't take the passcode for multiple devices at once. You have to do it on each device, okay? So last couple ones. Home click speed. You wouldn't think about this unless you had a really slow response time. If you're not able to triple click home fast, if you've got a disability where everything is very slow, then you want to slow down the triple click home speed. It can go regular, slow, or slowest. So if you have a really slow response rate, if it takes you a while to do things, then you can change that on the home button. Last one is accessibility shortcuts. This is where you can enable the triple click home for voiceover, for invert colors, for grayscale, for zoom, for switch control, or for assistive touch. So in order to save me and to not get locked into switch or locked into voice control ever again, it's fearful situations, I enable my triple click home for switch control and generally for voiceover. So that way it's easy for me to get back out. Okay? Another thing is if you're locked into a voiceover now and you're on Wi-Fi, if you enable Siri, then voiceover will shut off because Siri overrides voiceover. And you know, of course, that if you have your device plugged in, you can wake Siri up without even touching your device. If your device is plugged in, you can say, Siri, blah, 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 and Siri will wake up from across the room.
Well, out of the blue, you're watching TV and then she switched on. Like, what?
Sorry, what's Siri?
Siri is like an assistant in your iPad. So if I enable Siri, I can say, Siri, what's 2 times 5? And Siri will search the internet and find the answer for me and answer. And if you say to Siri, thank you, Siri, she'll say, no need to thank me. She's almost human. I know that middle schoolers like to make her mad. It's pretty funny. And she does get mad, and then she won't talk to you anymore. But she has to be enabled in Wi-Fi only. Okay, but it's pretty cool. You can ask her where a restaurant is. You can ask her about a science concept. Anything on the internet, she'll find it for you. In Google Chrome, if you notice in a search bar in Google Chrome, there's a microphone. Yeah. If you hit the microphone, you can talk your question into Google Chrome. You can also get an add-on for Google Chrome that's a Speak It add-on, and whatever you select on the screen in Google Chrome, it will read out loud to you. So if you get eye strain and you're very tired of reading all those student papers, when I'm really tired, I just select the text and I have it read it to me. And then I go back and make the feedback. Sometimes you just get too tired to really read, and then you're not reading, you're skimming. So we try to stay really real by using the accessibility features that are out there just to make good sense for our kids, for our students. That's everything that I have in accessibility right now. And it might change tomorrow, who knows, because the next update comes out and things change. But in closing, I want to say just thank you for spending this hour and a half with us. Thank you for sharing this part of our passion. We're around and really passionate about this subject. So if you have questions or need resources, just feel free to email Beth or I, and we'll be here for you. Thanks so much for your time.
Let's give them a applause. Thank you.